Now we're looking at love, and love is a very, misunderstood, maligned word. And there's all sorts of very cynical jokes around to do with love. You probably know the one, for example, love is an infectious disease which can only be cured by marriage. You've probably heard that one. All sorts of stuff which goes on, people speak about that. But it's funny, it's still, love is rooted into all of our lives as a bedrock of something we all look for. Everyone wants to love and be loved. We're made in such a way that we need to give and to receive love. When Genesis talks about us being made in the image of God, our Creator, then I think that's one of the areas we most see it is in our need for that deep fellowship, that heart-to-heart connection, where we can say to a person with open-heartedly, we can say, I love you. And we can receive that love back. How much of our music, modern music, is centered around what at least is termed love? Because there's that pull, that desire for love, which is in our nature. I was wondering quite what to call this series. Eventually thought, it's Liverpool, so let's go for the Beatles. All we need is love. But I thought, well, it's August. We could have called it Summer Loving. You know, could have had a Grease-like competition up here, see who the best dances over the summer. Could call it Love is in the Air, whatever. There's so many different things, but all you need is love. And in some ways, I think that's true because God's nature, you know, the Bible says God is love. If you want to sum up who He is, everything He does, the way He relates to people and creation around Him, it can be summed up in that word love. So in some ways, all you do need is love. Someone said, love God and do what you like. Because where love is controlling your decisions and your actions, then you're not actually going to do anything wrong within that. And then love is all you need, is the other side of that Beatles song. Love is all you need because love only comes in the form of people expressing love. You can't go down to Woolies, well you can't anyway because Woolies isn't there anymore, but you can't go to B&M and buy 99p's worth of love. Love comes to us because somehow other people attach themselves to us and express that love. And when that's there, in a sense, our lives are complete. Yes, we need other things. You need clothes. You need a house. You need umpteen things around you. But in essence, what's really the foundation of our lives is that loving, feeling loved, being loved, giving and receiving love. Scripture has a few references to love. You probably noticed them. I just pulled a few out before we go to the text we're going to be looking at. The only thing that counts, Paul says in Galatians, is faith expressing itself through love. Love there, you see, is very much an action word. As D.C. Talk said, love is a verb. Primarily, not a noun, it's a verb, it's something you do. Love expressing itself. That's the only thing that counts. Christian life is about expressing that love like that. Paul again gives a whole list of Christian virtues. And when he gets to the end of that, he says, above all these things, clothe yourselves with love. If you can't remember everything else you're supposed to do and be, and somehow that gets lost, don't miss out love. Clothe yourselves with love. I love that image of clothing, because when you look at people, what do you see? You do see their face and their hair, and in my case today, my knees, you know, but thank you. But you see people's clothes. Clothes is a very personal expression of who we are, and that's what people receive from you. So when it says clothe yourselves with love, that's what people are going to be picking up from you. Love in that way. And then Paul in the famous chapter on love, 1 Corinthians 13, where he says, you know, without love I'm nothing. I can have faith that moves mountains. I can give all I have to the poor. I give my body to be burned in the flames. But if I haven't got love, then I am absolutely nothing. Faith, hope, love. But which is the greatest? Which is the most important? Love. Because in some way, love puts all these together. But we do need to make sure and be very clear that we know what we're actually talking about with love. Many people these days say, I love you. But usually when someone says it, it's more, love me, please. And so, love, we have to know what we mean, particularly when we're talking about loving God, loving one another over the next weeks. And love, obviously, is expressed in many different directions, and we can speak about love as a general term, but do understand that love in its expressions is different. Love for family is very different to love for friends, for example. Love for parents is different to love for children. Since being back here in the UK the last 2 years, I've been experiencing love for my parents in a different way to perhaps I'd known. Love for my children is quite different. Love for a partner, a spouse, the closest relationship. There's something about human sexuality and the attraction and the unity and the love that's formed in that, which is very, very special and cannot be reproduced outside that. Something of the image of God, male and female, that together we form who he is. And knowing that love with a partner is probably the deepest expression of love that, or one of the deepest, I wouldn't like to say the deepest, but one of the deepest that we can know. There's also love for friends. You know, there are some friends who are really close and you have a genuine, deep love for those. Some people talk about a love for their country, particularly when on Monday, tomorrow, we're going to be looking back at the 100th anniversary of the First World War. And many people, the slogan was, for king and country. And there is a love for your country there, an identity, which is in that. Now, to explain some of this, C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Four Loves, where he characterizes love in different ways. I'd just like to highlight those for you, because it does help us understand how we can have a genuine and deep love for different people, and it's expressed in different ways. The first one he refers to is affection. He actually uses the Greek words, but I thought, you're probably not that interested in the Greek words, are you? If anyone is, see me afterwards and I'll give you them. But I thought it probably isn't, the sort of thing you go home and think, I wish Neil had taught us those 4 Greek words. Anyway, affection. C.S. Lewis describes this as sort of that feeling you have towards your old shoes. This pair of shoes you've had for 20 years and they just fit so nicely and you know them and you can slip them on and they just, when you put a new pair on you think, I did love my old shoes. There's that kind of affection which we also have with people. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes in marriage you can say, what's your wife? Oh, she's a good old stick. And there might be something wrong if that's all she is within a marriage. But there's nothing wrong with that place for an affection and a warmth, tender feeling within a relationship like that. Friendship, that where we have an attachment to people, which isn't in a romantic or an erotic sense, but is a very, very deep concern and appreciation for those people like that. The Bible speaks of David and Jonathan and says that David's love for Jonathan was greater than that for any woman. Well, in those days they often had more than one wife, so it's not quite the same as a marriage relationship we'd understand these days. But a real depth of friendship where you're prepared to give your life for your friend like that. A real deep love. But which is different to romantic love or erotic love. They say there is something rooted into who we are in our sexuality, which means there is an attraction formed which wants to express itself in romantic, erotic love. Probably I would say 2 sides of the same coin. That's one area we can also experience this in. But the final one, which we'll normally associate with God's love, is unconditional love. I will give you the Greek word for that because you often heard it, agape. Agape is that unconditional love. And I sometimes describe that as the sun, for example, will shine upon a beautiful sunflower field. But there's all these bright, shining yellow faces turning up towards the sun, like that. And in the corner there's a dung heap. Now the sun shines the same on the dung heap as it does upon the bright, shining yellow sunflowers. Because it's not looking for something in return. And in some ways that's how you can say unconditional love is like that. Unconditional love is concerned with the object of the affection, not with ourselves. And there's a great expression of that within God's love for us like that. Now, I looked up a definition of love. Don't know if you like this one. I thought it's complex enough. Should confuse you all anyway. So when we get on to simpler stuff. It's a deep, tender, ineffable feeling of affection and solicitude toward a person, such as that arising from kinship, recognition of attractive qualities, or a sense of underlying oneness. You got that? So next time you say to someone, I love you, instead you could say, I have a deep, tender, ineffable feeling of affection and solicitude towards you, which has arisen from the kinship that we share and recognition of the attractive qualities you have and a sense of underlying oneness in our relationship. Something like that. Catherine Hepburn, perhaps reflecting something of that givenness of love, said, love has nothing to do with what you're expecting to get, only with what you're expecting to give, which is everything. That's why I say for so many people the words, I love you, really don't reflect the heart of what love is, but reflect a desire to be loved back. Now in a true loving relationship, those 2 sides will be there, but love primarily is a force which motivates us in our action towards others, not in what we're looking to receive from them. And I put 4 sides into what I think love needs to express really. I think it has to hold a sincere commitment. Love And if we're being asked to love, and as the reading we saw from Scripture, love the Lord your God, there's decision involved. There's an act of the will. There's commitment. It involves everything that we are and everything that we have. It's not just about one little department of our lives. And it's something which motivates us to act, motivates us to do. It's not simply a feeling. It has to involve action. But I would also say it is sterile without the feelings. It has to inspire affection within us. And where love is only action, devoid of the feelings, then it really is missing something. So it's a sincere commitment with all that we are and have that motivates to action and inspires affection. Now, the scripture we've been looking at, and what I'm going to delve into now, looks at the two directions that love needs to happen. Love on a vertical relationship, if you like, to God, first of all, and love horizontally to other people. Now, one thing that happens when we skip or miss out the vertical relationship to God, then we find that the horizontal one of loving other people becomes so much more difficult, because we are not equipped to love people without that sense of being loved and being accepted, which comes from knowing ourselves loved by God. Because love is giving to others, then when we find ourselves in those relationships, unless we have the resources that have been put into us because we love God and know His love in return, then we can find ourselves empty when it comes to loving others. And that's why when we start off with the greatest commandment, we read this, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one, and you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength." This isn't because God is some kind of nepotistic person sitting on a throne who wants the whole world to come and worship Him in an egotistical, self-centered sort of way. But God knows that it is as we love Him that our lives are open to receive His love, and we become secure as individuals. And when we become secure in the knowledge of His love for us, there's nothing you can do to make God love you more. Wow. And there's nothing you can do to make God love you less. Wow. And as that becomes a secure foundation for your life, and you know yourself accepted, loved in that relationship, it becomes so much easier then to handle the bumps and the ups and downs of human relationships, which are less than perfect. And then we are free to love other people, not on the basis of, love me, but genuinely being equipped to love them with what they need. So many folks, teenage pregnancies, for example, are the result of a girl looking for love and giving something which she shouldn't give because she's desperate to receive love. Now, where we are secure in the love that God has for us, then we can enter these other relationships in a very different way. Now, just look at that one a moment. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your strength. When Jesus meets this teacher of the law, and this guy comes along and says, "What must I do to receive eternal life?" Well, Jesus just asks him, "Okay, what's the law of Moses say? How do you read what's there?" And the guy responds, quoting from this text. And he says, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind. And love your neighbour as yourself." Notice anything different? Looks like he's added mind, that, doesn't it? Well, this isn't just adding to Scripture because he felt like it. This is Luke contextualizing the gospel for a Greek world. You see, in the Jewish concept, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and all your strength. Jesus' response to him, I'll just skip that one. All this, it's just basically all that you are. In a Jewish concept, you were a body and a spirit or a soul joined together, and they very much saw us as a holistic being. And you know, we tend to think with our minds, don't we? That's what you think. But the Jews didn't. The Hebrews thought with their hearts. The heart was the seat of the mind. And feelings was somewhere else. They often put feelings in the kidneys. People didn't really know quite what all these different things were for. They were a little bit confused in some of that. Aristotle, for example, thought that the brain was a semen factory. Anyway. So don't worry about their understandings. But that's what they thought. But the Greeks, they were much more clinical, and they divided the world up. You have a body, and then you have a soul, and your soul isn't really connected to your body, and your soul is made up of 3 parts. You've got your mind, you've got your heart, and you've got your will, which they also refer to as the soul, as if it were all of that. So when Luke writes this text for a Greek audience, he has to make sure that these Greeks understand what he's talking about. Because otherwise they might read it and say, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. We don't have to worry about our minds. You do have to worry about your minds as well. And it's a bit like saying, love God, hook, line, and sinker. You know what that means? Hook, line, and sinker? Everything. You don't say, what about the rod? What about the float? Is that left out? Or lock, stock, and barrel? What about the trigger? These are just simply phrases which refer to everything, so don't worry about separating it up. Basically, what he's saying to us in this is, love God with the whole shebang, right? Everything that you are, your whole being. Love God with all that you are. Now, yesterday I was watching the Commonwealth Games 4x100 final. Anyone else see it? No, I can't quite do it. That way, isn't it? Star attraction. They go, don't they? When I was about 16, I broke my leg skiing. And I came back to school, and the gym teacher was not keen to let me off gym because I had a broken leg. So I remember doing the 100 meters on crutches. It was a bit like a self-propelled three-legged race, like that. And I did it in 32 seconds. And I was quite pleased with that. And he was pleased with me as well. Because he said, you couldn't have done it any better. You did it with all of your capacity. And that's something I love in this text as well, that the Lord says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, all your mind. You're not supposed to compare yourself with anyone else and say, that person loves God more than me. No. You compare yourself with yourself. And God asks you, we say in Spanish, to put all the meat on the roasting plate. All that you are. Quit comparing yourself with others. Run the 100 meters in 32 seconds if that's what you can do. But make sure you are putting all of yourself into this relationship with God like this. Now let's have a look at these. Just a couple of thoughts on each of these particular sections. Heart, soul, strength and mind. But understanding, this is just to help us understand a bit more. It's not to separate them off because we are just a whole person like that. All of your heart. Your heart somehow engages with passion, with emotion like that. I don't know what this does to you, for example. Vorsprung durch Technik. Has that convinced anyone to buy an Audi? No, your bank balance probably prevented it, even if it did. Have you ever noticed car advertising? Where does it seek to connect? Very rarely do you get an expert standing there and say, well, the Audi A8 has a W16 engine. It's a whole list of facts. Those are available for people like that, but generally they try and connect with emotion. BMW's advertising slogan, in Spain anyway, was, do you like to drive? It's trying to relate to something within us. Some of the emotion which goes on like that, our desires in that sense. And I think when we love God, we cannot build our relationship on that emotion, but emotion must be there. A.W. Tozer said this about worship. Worship is to feel in your heart and to express in some appropriate manner a humbling but delightful sense of admiring awe and astonished wonder and overpowering love. Isn't that great? That's what worship is supposed to be. Now, you can't manufacture that. It's not a question of standing there trying to feel something. Because like any relationship, that emotion comes as a response to. Worship is a response to who God is. We love because God first loved us. But where that's missing in our relationship with God, where there's no ziz, where there's no fire, no passion like that, then we really have missed something out. Seek passion in your relationship with God and seek to express that passion. It's not there all the time. It's not supposed to be. It's the same as in a human relationship. Passion isn't there all the time, but if passion is missing, then something's gone. So look for that expression of passion in your relationship with God. Now, soul. Now look at a slightly different level on this one and refer to something which anthropologists or social scientists refer to as the will to power. Now, this is most expressed maybe in figures like this, but there's a deep-seated something in our guts down there which propels us. It's a kind of visceral ambition. The desire to rule, for example. The desire to be first. what it is that propels people to sacrifice, to suffering, or to incredible cruelty, is in their desire to impose themselves over other people like that. So what they call the will to power. It's something to do with our ego. Now, I've worked a lot in Brazil and with Brazilians. As you probably know from the World Cup, there was quite a rivalry between Brazil and between Argentina. And Brazilians would always say that the Argentinians have a huge ego. And we have jokes like, how does an Argentinian commit suicide? He climbs on top of his ego and jumps off. That kind of thing. But there is something in our egos which wants to be the biggest and wants to be the best in the depths of our soul. And the Word of God says, love God with all of that. When you're loving God with all of that base sort of motivation, your decision, your willpower, then that puts a whole new dimension into the way you live out your Christian life. Then with all of our strength thinking perhaps particularly of our bodily strength, who we are, but I think it's more than that. It's our physical environment. It's who you are. It's your time. It's your possessions. It's your money. It's everything which involves you as a physical person, like that. Paul in Corinthians says, honor God with your body. Church is not just about going on a Sunday and singing songs. It's about how we live our lives through the rest of the week as well. When it's time to go and pray, for example, it's not your spirit that prays. Your body's got to be sat on the chair as well. Sometimes I've had people say when I've been going out to do evangelism, say, oh, I can't be there, but I'll be with you in spirit. I'd much rather have the body there, to be honest. No, I don't particularly like the idea of spirits floating around with me while you're doing something like that. So your body, your strength, who you are, love God with all that you are, physically as well. And then finally, he talks about your mind. And the reason the mind is so important is the mind, in most people's case anyway, is a filter through which we process almost everything that happens to us. When we take decisions, when we try and understand what God may want of us, then it is our mind which takes information and decides what we're going to do with it. That's why Paul says in Romans 12, says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Or the New Living Translation puts it like this, let God transform you into a new person by changing the way that you think. Being a Christian is not about a leap of faith which leaves all reason behind. We bring our minds with us. And we need to worship God and love God with our thoughts as well, dedicating ourselves to Him in mind as well. So love the Lord your God with all that you are, all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your strength, all of your mind. And as you do that, you'll become someone who is so much more aware of His love for you and so much more equipped to do what we'll be going on to look in the next 4 Sundays, which is how we then love other people around us.